Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pinnacle's Producers Podcast. Today we have Mini Producer. He's a content creator and music producer. He's worked with YB and Almighty J, Young Bleu, WifiIsFuneral. We had a great conversation. We went into a number of things which I'm sure other producers and other people in the industry will find useful. And as always, share it if you found it useful. Like and subscribe, it really helps us grow. And with all that said, I hope you enjoy.
What's going on, y'all? My name is Mini Producer, and I am a music producer and content creator. And yeah, I like to, of course, make beats, but also make really dope content. So I've been able to have a lot of opportunities through both avenues, and have a fun time.
When I first started the podcast, I had you on. We did an episode together, but it never released. And we were just talking about how it's actually kind of better that we're doing it now. That both of us have kind of built our brands and had more time. So there's definitely going to be a lot more that we can talk about and drop some more gems for people. The main reason, I mean, there's plenty of reasons I wanted you as a guest here, but one of the biggest reasons I wanted you as a guest was there are a lot of producers that don't make enough content or don't make a lot of content. I don't really judge how they want to run their business, do what you want. But one thing you've done incredibly well is the content side of things. Like, you seem like you have a ton of fun doing it too. So I just want to ask you a lot about that, but maybe I'll start a little bit earlier. So like, let's start a bit, maybe how you started making music or how you started producing. Where did it kind of stem from? Did you have a musical background, or did it kind of come up spontaneously later on?
So, as far as when I got started with music, I did take piano lessons as a kid, and I also took vocal lessons too, growing up, because I just always really enjoyed music. And then as far as getting into the production side of things, we have a family friend, well, he's like my family without the blood, like related, you know, whatever. So he had his equipment, he had Logic, and he also has, a Mac. He had a MacBook, and so he had a keyboard too. And when I saw that software and the keyboard, I was like, man, this is really cool. So I used to want to like mess around with the stuff whenever we would go over to his house. And eventually I got my own software, which my first software I used was Mixcraft. And I really just would drag and drop, you know, the different melody loops that they had in there and just mess around with making my own beats and stuff like that. And I would upload them to YouTube. Like, I really put my all into it. Like, even when I first got started, and my beats were not good at all, you know, but I just definitely had a lot of fun with it. And so that's really how I got started. I would say that taking piano lessons and vocal lessons has helped in a way, but I did get kind of out of practice because, you know, when you do stuff like that, you really should keep practicing. And once I stopped with those lessons, I didn't lose it, but, you know, that's something I wish I would have done, is like kept doing those lessons, at least maybe into college. But I mean, it has benefited that I know, you know, like music theory and know certain aspects of music because of my lessons. So I didn't lose it all, but it is something that I did enjoy that I probably could have continued at least into, you know, my early 20s or whatever.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because recently, when I say recently, I mean maybe in the past 6 months to a year, I've realized more and more the importance of music theory. So before, when I was making beats, like, I understood music and how, you know, what sounded good. I just kind of went by ear. If it sounded good, I went with it. If not, and that is a good way to go about things to an extent. But I've really realized the importance of music theory through other producers, because a lot of other producers I've been talking to, once they start to really incorporate music theory with all the skills that they have in making music, it can take your beats, your melodies to a whole different level. So yeah. I totally see what you mean by wanting to continue. I've started to learn on my own as well.
Yep, same.
Because it's helped a lot. I mean, it helps. It does make a difference. You can view it in a whole different way.
Yep.
Yeah, so I'll ask you a little bit about content itself. Like, for producers that want to start let me word this correctly. They want to start improving their brand and getting more known. My go-to thing when I first think about that is content. Is that where your head goes too, or when you think about content, is it a different way of looking at it?
I feel like in regards to content, it does depend on how you look at it, because content could be straight up just video content. Like I put out a lot of videos. I do skits. I show myself in a different way when it comes to my brand. However, your content can also be your beats. So if you have a unique sound, and when I mean unique, just like, a sound that you're kind of known for, that also can be your content, but finding a way to display it in a more like inviting, interesting kind of way. Because I see a lot of producers, and I'm sure you see this too, but I see a lot of producers, they post a picture of like an artist and put the beat behind it, or they do the like Dropbox video snippet or iPhone video snippet or whatever to display their beats. And for some people that really works out. Sometimes you see even bigger producers, whatever, that may not show themselves that much, but I do think for the most part, at least for producers that I see that really have like solid brands, they are showing themselves, or at least finding a way to like connect with their audience. So I just think it can really only go so far as like never showing yourself, unless you're kind of gonna do like a Daft Punk type thing and have a mask or that more so anonymous feel to your brand, which is fine if that's the kind of spin that you do with it. But I think it's important for anyone with a brand, but for producers to find a unique stance for their own brand and really run with it. Because Ed Talenti, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but like you would know him for like doing stuff outside. He does his videos outside. That's kind of how I know him. I always, whenever he pops up on my feed, he would be having his thing outside making beats. And that's a unique way to show off your brand, because although being outside is not really unique, but being a producer that's doing his content outside or doing their content outside is cool, right? So like for me, since I do have a disability and I don't look like your typical, producer that's making beats, I mean, naturally people are kind of drawn to that. So it is a little bit different. I mean, that does help me in a way, because like people are already drawn to the fact that I look different, and the fact that I make beats and make content that they like is just a bonus. But obviously my disability can maybe get me in the door, but like what's gonna keep me there? You know what I mean? Like if you don't have attractive content, or people can't really relate to it or just like it in general, then whatever difference that you may have or feel like you have is probably only going to take you so far. So it's important to really like figure out how you want to display your content. Just especially with social media, there's really no excuse. You can do a lot with social media. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of ways to benefit from social media and getting your stuff out there by just putting something out there. I think a lot of people get nervous or like don't want to put themselves out there because of maybe backlash or feedback that they're going to get from other people. And I understand that, because when I first started, I didn't want to make videos with my face in it. But then once you put out that first video and you just keep doing it, you really build up this community, which I call mine mini gang. But you build up this community of people who really are invested into your story, and you get to just connect with different people once you figure out what your stance is and who you are as a brand, a business person, and it'll just go from there.
That's an amazing answer, and I really appreciate that, because one of the things you mentioned in there too that kind of caught my attention was the fact that you said you look different so people will be gravitated towards you more. And I think that's really interesting, because I know that a lot of people who don't really make content or might be a little nervous or shy might actually use the fact that they feel insecure about something, or they look different, or you could be the best looking person in the world. You could be you could be an Instagram model worthy person, but if you're insecure, you're insecure. So
Yeah.
the fact that you view it like that is really, really interesting to me, and I think a lot of people could learn from that and pick up from that. And the fact that you said releasing multiple, continuing to release, the next video gets easier, the next video gets easier type thing. And that's true. I mean, you build a community and you realize the benefits of continually releasing, and you realize, oh, it's not so bad. Like, once you start doing consistent content, it's really not as, if someone's scared of it, it's not as scary as one might think. In terms of, because you do a lot of different things. I know you have a podcast. You were telling me about your review show. Before I get into your review show, or maybe this will be your answer, but what is if you had to pick a favorite type of content that you make, your favorite one, it could even still be beats, but what do you have the most fun making? What do you look the most forward to when you're making content?
Ooh. Oh man, that's actually a good one. I really actually, now that I think, I love making beats. It's always gonna be my go-to. However, I really love making skits, like my videos that I do, because just being able to like make people's day better by making a piece of content really gives me a lot of joy. Because like when people watch my skit videos and the type of content that I make, and just seeing the comments and people like, oh man, I love this or whatever, like that makes me really happy. So yeah, I would say making my skits is my favorite piece of content to make, because I get to be really creative and try to record different angles and add different effects and editing styles to the videos, and really tap into my personality and display it in my content for other people to enjoy.
Actually that is a great answer, and I have enjoyed your skits thoroughly. So they're pretty funny. They're awesome. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. And in terms of your favorite platform, so outside of Twitter, I know you use a lot of Instagram, so maybe that is your answer, but your favorite platform for networking and content, or those could be two different answers.
Oh man, okay, yeah. I feel like my favorite platform for networking, well, man, that's actually a good question, because I have noticed that Twitter is actually a really great platform. I didn't realize that at first, like growing on Twitter, because I see a lot of producers use Twitter, and I'm kind of like, content wise, that's not my favorite platform, because I just personally feel like with Twitter, when I've seen producers on there, they kind of do those engagement tweets, which is fine, where it's like, oh, producers, what's your favorite piece of equipment, or those kind of questions all the time. And I didn't want to have to create that kind of content, because it didn't feel authentic to me. So that's why I'm still figuring out the whole how I want to be on Twitter type thing. But I would say for content, my favorite is Instagram. And I also would say I use that for networking as well. And I also like TikTok, because TikTok has just a really great algorithm in regards to virality. It's a lot easier, I feel like, to get views on TikTok and stuff like that. And just a lot more engagement that happens with TikTok. So I would say my top two platforms are definitely Instagram and then TikTok.
Yeah, cool. That's very true about TikTok. Its algorithm is really, really incredible, especially for artists.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, that makes sense. Let's talk a little bit about your placements. You've worked with Almighty J, WifiIsFuneral, and Young Bleu. How did those come about?
Okay, so we'll start with the Almighty J placement. So I work with a lot of independent artists, and an independent artist I've been recently working with, he has bought a lot of features. He bought a lot of features from like major artists, and he wanted me to produce the records. So that's really how it came about, is because with Almighty J and WifiIsFuneral, they're on both of the song that came out called Ali, and that just happened because the artist Buggy Blue, his manager, reached out to me and said, hey, you know, I'm looking to have a song for an artist that I have, and it's going to have Almighty J. Do you want to produce it? And I was like, yeah, you know, I'll do it. So I produced that, and they ended up telling me, like, oh, WifiIsFuneral also got on the song. And so that song, I mean, it's only been out about, like, 2 weeks, and it has, if I remember correctly, I probably, like, close to 14,000 or something like that. It's doing pretty well for, you know, its first debut for an independent artist and stuff like that. And, you know, so he's been buying a lot of features, which has been cool. My goal is though to get like a placement with just the actual like artist solo, like not having an independent artist, just because there's a different budget that goes behind when it's the major artist versus, you know, an independent artist. They may not know about how to market their songs, and it kind of just makes it where it doesn't even matter that there was a feature. And it's not for this particular situation. It's just situations that I typically see when artists try to buy features. They don't really know how to market it, so it's kind of like it doesn't really mutually benefit you or the producer because the song's not really pushed like it could have been.
Right.
As far as Young Bleu, same situation. Had an independent artist, and he bought the Young Bleu feature before Young Bleu was like really popping. And it was cool, but that song wasn't marketed either, like it could have been. And so that's really been one of those things. I mean, Young Bleu is one of the biggest artists right now in hip hop, you know, the current hip hop kind of state. So it's just very interesting. Like, even when I do say, yeah, I got Young Bleu on it, which is really dope. Like, it's nice to have songs that have these big artists, because the process of it is these major artists still have to like the beat. You know what I mean? So it's not like they're just getting on it because they're getting paid. Like, they do have to like the beat. So it does make me feel good that these artists did listen to my beat and said, you know what, I still want to get on it. You know what I mean? So I know it is still a benefit because these artists had to say yes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that has been nice. And it's definitely helped with my brand because I can point to like, yep, I got this artist, you know, on the song, and you can hear it, you know what I mean? You can hear the artist and hear the beats and stuff like that. I have a song that's coming out next month, and it's gonna have DC the Don on it, and it's with the same artist that I said, Buggy Blue. So, you know, it's cool, man. I mean, I'm really grateful to have any major artist in any capacity on my stuff. So, you know, I'm definitely not like, oh man, if it's not just a major artist, like it doesn't count. Like, no, I mean, I'm not like that. It's just it is one of my bigger goals to just strictly have like a major artist with a major push, or even if it's not like a major artist, just an artist that has a backing behind them, and has the marketing know-how to push the song as well, so that we can really do some numbers and see some, you know, traction from the song. So that's my thing. And one of my goals for next year is to just have some artists that have some push and get that song out there, so, you know, they can get heard too.
You brought up the fact that, you know, you're still very grateful for the fact that you've been able to work with these major artists regardless of how it's come about. And I think that is really important because credits, I mean, some people really like to downplay the importance of credits, or rather what credits can do. You know, obviously it's not the end all be all for every producer to work with a huge artist, but having credits with major artists helps a ton with whatever you're trying to do, because it can, you know, it provides credibility. Hey, I've worked with these people, they've been on my beats. So I do think that's really important, and some, you know, I don't think people should downplay the importance of that, because again, some producers do. So it is really cool that you're getting these placements regardless of how they're coming about. And even the fact that you mentioned that they still have to hop on these beats and say yes and like what they're doing, that does say a lot. You mentioned what well, Young Bleu is one of the people that you've had a placement with, and one of the recent things, I don't know if you saw this on Twitter, but Yeah, so I just kind of want I just wanted your opinion on that. Basically, for those who don't know, Tory Lanez tweeted something out where he said Young Bleu just sent me beats. He's really good at them, whatever, and he's better than 80% of the producers out right now, something like that. And a lot of producers were really weren't too happy with the wording of that. So I just want your 2 cents on that. What do you think?
Here's my thing about that. I can understand why, some producers would be frustrated with that statement. I think the biggest thing that I took away is your name is really what, like, in status, especially in this industry, really play a big part into how people are going to perceive you, right? So if when I get, for instance, and I'm sure you can relate to this, when you have major credits and you tell artists, I don't have to tell artists, but if, let's say I did tell an artist, like, oh, who have you produced for? Oh, well, I have Young Bleu, I have this guy and this woman or whoever on my song that are major, they're going to perceive your beats differently, right? It shouldn't be like that. You could have made the same beats last week, but if you say I got Drake on my beats, people are like, yo, you got the best beats I've ever heard in my life. You know what I mean? And so I feel like for Young Bleu already has the credibility, right? He's done songs with Drake. He's already built a career in a short period of time as this major artist. So anything that he does is going to be seen as like, yo, this is the best. These things are banging. Forget these other no names, whatever. And it shouldn't be like that. I definitely don't think it should be like that. And I've seen producers talk about, well, Tory Lanez has his producers like Play Picasso and other people that have produced for him. But here's the thing that I'm noticing. A lot of these artists stay in certain circles. And if you're not in that circle, it's not like you don't matter, but you just might not be a thought, And I think that the music industry, there's a lot of layers to it that people that are not as deep into it are not seeing. A lot of it is just these different players. So, of course, Tory Lanez is going to say that Young Bleu is bigger than other because if Young Bleu retweets it, that goes to another net. I mean? There's layers to this. You know what I mean? So, again, looking at it from a standpoint of, well, he said that he's better than 80% of the producers. That is not true. I mean, that's just not true. But looking at it as this is an industry where if you have money, if you have the status, the respect, more times than not, will probably come with it. It's just the name of the game. Like, if you wear certain clothes, people perceive you differently. If you are at certain spaces, people perceive you differently. Like, I know you're probably going to talk about this, but I took a picture with Metro Boomin. I posted on my Instagram. Everybody and who's everybody is coming out of the woodworks, like, oh, you got to take a picture with Metro. Let me send you some loops. It's a picture. I took one picture with one guy that's respected in the industry, and boom, people want to, hit me up. Oh, can I send you loops, bro? Yeah, oh, your beats are hard. And I'm like, my beats were hard last week before this pic, So yeah, I think the thing is, a lot of it has to do with perception is everything. And if you're, and I don't want to say everything, but perception does, have a lot to do with how people are going to see you. So with Young Bleu, he has the status, he has money. He's making beats now. A lot of artists in the industry are going to back that. He got a placement with Lil Wayne on it. You know what I mean? And yes, some producers say, well, I've been doing this for this many years. Where is my placement? Man, I mean, maybe it's just not your time, or you don't have those connections. It's Young Bleu. If Young Bleu hits up Lil Wayne and says, hey, get on my beat, he has a bigger chance to do that because he built his way up to in his status and working with people like Drake, who are one of the biggest artists in the hip-hop industry. There you go. I mean, so I feel like it's all about I feel your mindset about it. I think that looking at it instead of a negative way, like he said 80%. Oh, I'm not in the 80%. What are you trying to say about other producers? And looking at it like, man, I need to really build up my brand so that other people talk about me like that. Like, yo, I just got beats from, Joe Smo and he's great. Or, I just got beats from Jess and she's great, or whoever, you know what I'm saying? So like, I looked at it in a way of not a negative thing. Like, he's just talking his Twitter. It's social media. Like, a lot of people say things that are not true or not factual or whatever. But I look at it like, okay, I'm gonna build up my brand. So if someone wants to tweet that about me, you know what I mean? Like, I just got beats from Mini Producer, and man, he better than 80% of y'all. You know what I mean? Like, so I think it's just how you look at it, and I can understand, like I said at the beginning, of why some producers would be upset, because it does feel like it's downplaying the the up and coming producers and the underdogs and those guys that are really working to make a name for themselves. But I just think for me and myself, it encourages me to make a name for myself in a way where people want to talk about me like that. And so, I think it's cool for someone like Young Bleu, who, he's just started, to, have that joy of, he just put out I guess a tweet or Instagram post, I don't know, that said he did 100K off of beats in a week. 100K of beats in a week, like that's motivating. I said, like, for me, that's motivating, like 100K in a week. And I know that some producers say, oh, he did 100K in a week, I can't even sell beats. But I just think it's more having a positive kind of mindset, because I feel like if you look at everything and you're just angry about everything that you see, that's just so draining. Like, I don't care if Young Bleu is, respectfully, I mean, it's great that he's making beats, but like, that's not going to change what I'm doing. You know what I mean? It's not going to change how I'm building my brand or my sound or whatever. And I think that people really need to focus on themselves and building up their brand and their sound and whatever that looks like. And all of the accolades and the credit and everything that you're, wanting to achieve is going to come with you putting in the work to get there. So, I don't hate on it. I think it's cool. And I think that Tory Lanez tweet, Tory Lanez has tweeted a lot of wild stuff and has been in a lot of interesting situations. So I take what he says with a grain of salt, just like a lot of people. I'm going to take with a grain of salt of what they say, because, it's social media. You're going to say stuff. Tory Lanez probably knew he was going to rile people up. It's all a game at a certain point, I feel like, where people know how to get people, talking, and it has gotten people talking. You know what I mean? So again, it's an attention game too. And someone I follow a lot is Grant Cardone, and he talks about how, like, getting attention is an important aspect of building a brand. And a lot of these artists know how to get other people's attention, whether it's negative, positive, neutral, so yeah, I don't put too much effort into what Tory Lanez is saying about Young Blue's beats and what 80%, if I fall in the 80% or the 20% that's the top above that, it's not that big of a deal. I think other producers just need to worry about their craft, making the best beats, networking, and just building a name for themselves, and everything else is gonna come together. Maybe an unpopular opinion, but that's what it's here for.
Yeah, and it's interesting that is an unpopular opinion, because when I saw that tweet when around the time I would say he first tweeted it, and I just scrolled through. I'm a Tory fan, like I follow his stuff. I looked at the tweet, I thought, I took a quick glance, I thought, oh, cool, like Young Blue's making beats, Tory thinks they're great, cool. That's literally all I thought, and I kept scrolling, and then I go on Twitter, like, however many hours later, and I find out that people are really, really upset about what he tweeted, which really surprised me. But when I looked at it, I really do agree with a lot of what you said. And to me, it was just surprising that even some of the producers that I know keep solid mindsets and know how to just think about these types of things, they were really upset about that tweet specifically. So, but yeah, I'm with you. And even, there's so many different ways to look at this, but one of the things you can also say is that music is subjective. So
yes,
okay, Tory might really feel like he's better than 80%, and that's his opinion. That's great. Like, yeah, I just don't see how it goes further than that. And you made an amazing point about how Young Bleu has already built an incredible brand as an artist. He's one of the hottest artists out right now, up and coming, especially after the Drake song. So you know, of course he's going to make more money and get more attention for his beats than someone who's producing and doesn't have as big of a brand would. And that you can apply that to so many things. I could build a brand off something completely unrelated to music and then transfer, you know, show people that I'm making beats, and I could get way more attention from the beats just because of that. Exactly. So I do appreciate your answer, and I think people should be looking at it and taking it with a grain of salt, and also looking at it as in a positive light. Yeah, so I gotta ask you about you were featured on Snapchat as part of a documentary episode. Can you kind of go into that and how that came about? Because that's super cool. It's really interesting that happened.
Thank you. So the interesting thing about this is it actually came from a hashtag. So I recently got new management, and my manager is awesome. Her name is Kim. And you know, she's just been super incredible, strategic. Like, she thinks of different strategies and just things that I'm not thinking about. So she had given me some hashtags to use for a post of mine. Because if you've seen my content, I've started like featuring more pictures of myself and stuff like that. And that was her doing, because I wasn't necessarily that kind of guy that was like, yeah, let me just take pictures of myself and put them out there. So I put a picture up and used the hashtags that she gave me, and a person reached out to me, a casting director, and he was like, hey, would you be interested in being part of this series? It's called Reunited, and, you know, you would get to meet someone, you would get to see someone that you haven't like seen in a few years or whatever. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, I hadn't seen my grandparents in like 3 years. So I was like, man, that would be really cool. So we went through the whole process and talked, and I ended up asking him, because we did like a interview type thing through Zoom, and I was like, hey, how did you find me? He's like, I actually found you through a hashtag. And I was like, wow, that's wild. And so that was one of the first things that like my manager, like, that happened directly because of my management, which is something that I really feel like we should talk about, is management, but we'll get on to that. But
yeah, I wrote that down as soon as you mentioned.
Yeah, when it comes to the Snapchat thing, I mean, it was definitely a cool experience, because I got flown out, and I got to see my grandparents, of course, and like connect with them again, which is really amazing. And it was just, it's so wild sometimes to think about, you know what I mean, when you work with a company like Snapchat, like it's a major company, to have any type of episode or like anything in that capacity with a company like that is just, I'm super grateful. I mean, and so, yep, they paid to fly me out there. My girlfriend came with me too, because they want her to be a part of the series. And I just had a really great time, being able to film. They paid for a hotel for like the day. I was only there for a few hours, you know, so, it was a really fun experience. And of course my grandparents were happy to see me. We got pancakes. They had pancakes ready to go. So, you know, and that goes back to the brand thing. Is like, one, you never know what content and where someone's gonna find you. That's why I say to like put out content. Don't overthink it, because someone could see your piece of content that you think is like, oh, this isn't that good, and someone else could love it and be like, yo, we want to connect with you and do this and this. So the Snapchat thing was really just something that kind of felt like it came out of nowhere. And I'm really grateful that I was able to connect with, like I said, a company like Snapchat, because that's a major opportunity to be able to work with a brand like that.
And the fact that they found you through a hashtag and all that happened because of that is amazing. And yeah, and the fact that, so we can move on to the manager topic too, because I'll ask you a little bit about managers and your opinion on when someone would need a manager, and also just how your relationship with your manager came about. But the first thing I want to touch on with managers is specifically about the situation you mentioned. You said that she gave you some recommendations of hashtags you should use. How involved is your manager in your day-to-day content creation and release?
Oh man, she's very involved. We talk every day. She is my like day-to-day manager. Like, we have a very great business relationship, and she makes my calendar. Like, this was on the calendar, this podcast interview. Like, she updates my calendar for me. I have a Google Drive, like a section for me that she created, and has various folders in there where they get updated. She edits my pictures for me. She's created different content for me that's like graphic wise. So when I post my stories for like my vlogs, she created that. I just posted up there. You know what I mean? So she's super involved, which I know is more so a rare thing in management, but she's very involved. She creates the agreements for when I do brand deals, which I've, you know, already done a couple since she started managing me. Excuse me. And so she's very involved in my career, and you know, I send her my content. Like, when I'm gonna post a video, typically I'll send her, you know, the video to watch, just to watch. I mean, it's not like she has to approve it or something, but she just, you know, just to have her involved and look at it before it's released and stuff like that. And so yeah, I mean, she's written my captions before for some of my posts, and yeah, I mean, she's definitely way more involved than probably most producers and just people are gonna get with management. But that's just how she likes to work. So it really helps me, because I'm serious. She does a lot of stuff for me that helps a lot, where I get to focus on the creative part of my business and brand. And so yeah, she does a lot, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, everything you just mentioned sounds like a dream manager. That's really amazing.
Yeah,
that
it is.
Yeah. So how did you, and so on that topic, I'm sure a lot of people would be curious, like, how did you guys meet? Like, how did that come about?
So I actually knew her through prior affiliation with like another group that I was involved with, and I just really liked her work ethic and what she was doing, but I didn't really talk to her that much. And then once she was no longer a part of that group, I said, hey, you know, I still want to be able to connect and work with you. And then eventually I wasn't a part of that group either, so it just made it way easier for her to really be my management. And so that's how we started working together, is I reached out to her and wanted to work with her. So, you know, I kind of took the first move in that regard, but it was definitely worth it, because when you see people like that who are putting in a lot of effort and have a great work ethic like that, sometimes you just can't pass up those kind of opportunities, because, you know, having really great management, especially as a producer, it just feels sometimes kind of rare, because I've had several different types of managers in different capacities, and I have not had a manager like this one in my whole career. I can say that with confidence. And so I'm really grateful that I have come to this point of having a manager like this, because having great management can make a world of difference in your career. I mean, opportunities, you know, that may not have happened. I mean, she emails people for me when it comes to connecting with brands and sending out stuff for me, like, super involved, you know. And the wild thing is, like, she has other clients. So that's what's really cool about it, is like, she makes you feel like you're her only client with how involved and helpful she is, but she actually has other clients outside of me, not producer clients. Just typically she works with like brands and entrepreneurs and business owners and stuff that are not necessarily music related. So I think I'm her only producer client. And so, but still, she's great at what she does.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. And how would one, if there is even a right answer to this, but if a producer is kind of considering getting a manager, how does a producer know when they would need a manager, or when's a good time to start looking at management options?
You know, I've learned a lot through having you know, to be honest, when I did have managers, I've learned now that it probably wasn't the time to have managers at all. I felt like I thought it was, but it really wasn't. You know, a lot of the stuff that I was doing myself, or finding the opportunities for myself. And, you know, some of the managers I had were just really benefiting off of that, which is not what I feel like a manager should be doing. So I really think it's more so about like when you start to have opportunities and it becomes like a little too much, and then that's maybe a time that you can look into management. But here's the thing that I would say for producers out there. One, don't let what looks like a good thing like get you away from, because sometimes something that looks good is not actually good, you know. Like there's a lot of producer groups that everything looks like things are smooth, and you know they're getting placements, but you don't know the back end of how those placements happen. Maybe the managers had nothing to do with it. Maybe the producer is the one who got the placement by themselves, or they got the opportunity, or it was someone that they knew outside of their management, and the management is just posting them on social media. So I would say to definitely do your research about any manager or producer teams that you're looking to be a part of, because things are not always what they seem. Also, make sure you look at your agreements. I definitely made the mistakes of not, like, you know, thinking that everything was kosher and it wasn't. So having someone look at an agreement, or making sure that you understand what your agreement is saying and stuff like that, because, you know, it can just get you in some situations that you don't want to be in. So I would definitely say when it's time to look for a manager, I feel like you're just going to know. Really, you're gonna like you're gonna know, like, you know what, this is kind of getting too much. And I think the right people, I know my situation, obviously I asked my manager to be my manager, but in most situations I know people say like, oh, that the right manager is gonna come to you, but I would say it's just really situational. Sometimes, yeah, the right manager may come to you, and sometimes you gotta take that kind of initiative and be like, hey, I see this person that has these great qualities and work ethic, and I like what they're doing. Let me see if they're in the capacity to take on a client, or if they'd be open to managing me, because I feel like there's someone I could build with. So it really just depends on your journey. I don't think you necessarily had to have so much going on to the point of like, oh, now I need a manager. I think it just depends on you, because, you know, some people could say, well, mini producer, he shouldn't have a manager right now because, you know, he doesn't have that much going on. Like there's people that have way more going on that don't have managers. But for me, it just has helped having a manager at this point, and has benefited me because my manager is very involved and does seek out opportunities for me, which I believe a manager should do. So the point of the matter is, it's really up to you on your journey, but I would say just make sure you do your research and are knowledgeable about the person that you're going to be working with.
Yeah, no, you all very good points. I totally agree with doing your research. That's really, really important, especially when you're maybe not starting out, but especially when you're not as experienced in the field and in the industry, and you're looking for a manager. You can get really excited, and then you realize that you just put yourself in a really not great situation. And that happens a lot in the industry. It's really crazy how many people will try and take advantage of others. So definitely do your research. But that also, with that said, there's also a lot of amazing people, and you'll meet amazing, you know, managers, someone like yours. And I've met some incredible people in the industry that are managers that are just above and beyond what a manager should or could be doing. So tell me a little bit about your review show.
So I have a music review show called The Come Up, and, you know, the reason I named it The Come Up is essentially like it's for artists and producers who are, you know, coming up. I mean, it's in the name, but it's just to shed light on those producers and artists who may not be able to be seen, and put them, you know, on another platform to have their stuff heard. And I have like industry professionals, celebrities, whatever you want to call them, celebrity co-hosts, or, you know, industry professionals in the industry that come on to co-host with me. So I've had DJ Pain One, which a lot of producers and artists alike know who he is. So that was really dope to have him, you know, on my platform as a co-host. I had King Wizard, who produced for Polo G, Lil Baby, and he's produced for other people. But he produced "Don't Play" with Polo G and Lil Baby, so that was dope. And he's produced for a lot of other artists and stuff like that. So it was nice. He's all the way from the UK too. And then I had Miss Money Official, or just Miss Money. She's an independent artist, but she's built a great name for herself too, and does put on a lot of shows for independent artists to be a part of. So, and I'm continuing to have different guest hosts that are coming on the show. I got ones for January and February, so I'm just looking to have really great people in different fields in regards to the industry, so artists, A&Rs, people like that, so that you can get different opinions from people who are doing this in a full-time capacity and get their insight. And so for the show, though, there is a fee that comes along with it, because just due to the fact that these people are, they're doing this. This is not someone you find randomly, you know what I mean? And like, oh, here, come on my review show. I'm really getting people that are taking their time and more than likely would charge for the kind of stuff that they're talking about, because, this is what they do. This is what they do. Yeah. So there is a fee that's associated with it. Right now it's $30, but it's not. I think, and again, it comes to the mindset thing. A lot of people could say, oh, well, why are you charging? You should do it for free or whatever. And at one point, I did used to do it for free before I had special guests. I used to have where it was just free or you could pay. But I've noticed that when you charge people, there is a certain energy that comes with that, like a proudness of that really comes when people pay. Like when they pay, they're like, yo, I'm ready. Like this is what I got. This is fire. You know what I'm saying? And so people are able to, I guess, look past the price when they know that they're going to get something valuable, and that's going to be an experience. You know what I mean? Like they're listening to people that they like or look up to, and they're getting feedback from these people that they like. And, in the grand scheme of things, if your song is really dope and one of my co-hosts are like, man, I really love your sound, and you guys connect on a separate occasion and they have an opportunity, you're not even going to think about $30 or whatever the fee is, at the time. So, it's been really an amazing experience. I've had some really talented artists and producers that have been able to submit their stuff, and, I've gotten some really great feedback from it. So I continue to do it and, have artists and producers be able to share their stuff. So it's an exciting time, and I love being able to do this review show and have different co-hosts and even people that I like and look up to. I don't even want to say necessarily just look up to, but just it's nice to have other industry people and professionals to be able to co-host with them and, have them be a part of my show.
Yeah, that is amazing. That's really blessed. And of course, the paying aspect, it makes total sense. Even if you didn't have all these amazing people on the show, they've brought an immense amount of value to it. But, you're providing a service, you're providing something for the people that are submitting. So, of course, that makes total sense. I feel like sometimes producers will, or even artists will sort of demonize paying for anything, and it's really bizarre to me too. I don't know why someone would be thinking that. At least to an extent. Like there's times where we've had some weird things happen in the industry. There's a lot of scammers out there and things like that. That I understand, but sometimes I feel like people take it way too far, where they conflate the scammers with the people that are actually providing proper services. So
exactly, that's so true.
Yeah, that's really interesting. When did the idea of a review show come about? Like, how did that come about?
So, let's see, man. I've been doing this review show for a couple of years now. It's now just really started to change and kind of go through this transitional period of how it looks like now. Like I didn't used to have guests. I actually used to have one other co-host on it, and we just used to have people submit, and eventually we added a paid aspect into it where people could pay, you know, for the full song to be played or full beat or whatever. And just as of recently, it's turned into having different co-hosts on there, just to add a different aspect to the show, you know what I mean, and be able to give artists and producers a different kind of experience so that they have something to look forward, you know, have something to look forward to as well every week. Like, oh, not every week, I do it twice a month, but to look forward to, like, oh, who's going to be on the next one? Like, I wonder what guest, you know, he's going to bring on to his show and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool. Like, I like how the show has really had its different phases, and it's still continuing to grow and be able to just connect with more people that want to be a part of it. And, you know, I'm glad to see it flourish, you know, because when you create something, it's really nice to see things work out for it, you know? So that's kind of how it started, and where it's going is sky's the limit. And, you know, tying it back into my manager, she actually came up with the idea of having like special guest host on it, because that's not even something I was really thinking about. And she creates the graphics for when I do my flyers and stuff. She helps create the graphics with her graphic designer, just to add a whole different aspect to it and really having something official, you know what I mean, when people see it. And so it's been really great. It's definitely growing, and I'm just glad that you know, people enjoy the show and tune in when they do. And it's on Thursdays, by the way. I have it on Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern to 8 p.m. Eastern, and I have it twice a month.
And whereabouts does it stream?
It's on Instagram Live. I stream from Instagram Live.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
Yeah, so hopefully, I mean, I'm, you know, who knows where it'll go. Like, I've been told I should try looking to stream it also on YouTube and stuff like that. But, you know, it'll just depend. But right now, it's strictly on Instagram Live.
Understood. Cool. No, I love that idea. I think that's great. There's an insane amount of talented artists and producers that a simple play on. I've seen a lot of artists go on live streams where they play artist music or producers beats, and they get opportunities through that because they just build the right connection, or someone who's watching the live is you know, notices their work, and great things can happen through that for sure. So it's something that I think is actually, I would say that's almost underrated. I feel like artists don't even utilize those types of opportunities enough. You know, especially like you said, if you know your song is good, that's a great way to get it heard immediately by a decent number of people, and good, not necessarily even number, but the quality of the people, meaning the people that can give you the opportunities are there too. So that's really dope. What would you say out of, if you, and this question can be a little bit difficult, but if you had to pick one lesson that's your biggest lesson that you've learned thus far in your career, what would that lesson be?
I would say be authentic to who you are. You know, I feel like it's very easy to lose sight of yourself when you start getting in certain situations, and the deeper that you get into this industry and trying to, you know, keep up with other people and competition. Like, you know, I've learned that I'm really only competing with myself, you know, and I think having that mentality has helped. But being authentic to yourself is really important, and will help you stay grounded no matter what happens. You know, in your professional life, personal life, just being yourself is gonna take you really far. And people can see when you're not being true to who you are. So it's just better to, you know, be yourself.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think with being yourself, that opens up so many more doors. The more authentic you are, you can start talking about things that maybe other people aren't usually talking about, because again, it's your own personal experience. And then you realize, oh, like a bunch of people relate to it, and they can actually benefit from either even the way you go about things, the specific things that you're talking about, the subtleties I feel like really do make a difference in that case for sure. So that is great advice. I had a question kind of vaguely in mind. I was gonna ask people what types of, like, if they were to recommend a book to someone, what would they pick? But I think I'll maybe expand that. Like a book, a movie, it could be really any form of media. It could even be a YouTube channel. But if you were maybe giving it as a present to someone, or, you know, yeah, something like that, like a present to someone you loved or cared about, it could be a book, movie, channel, any form of media, what would it be?
Oh man, a really good book is The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. It's such a good book. And like I love that book because it really just does open your mentality, you know, about just not caring so much about like what other people are saying about, you know, just all the things that in the grand scheme of things more often than not don't really matter, that we kind of put energy to. So that would definitely be a book I would recommend to people, is that book, because when I read that book, it was a good book.
Yeah, I remember reading that too. It was some time ago now, but it is a really, he articulates the ideas really well and they make total sense. So definitely a good recommendation. And as for future goals, so what does Mini Producer want to accomplish? Whether it's a short-term goal, whether it's like the big final, if there is a final destination, what does that look like? Any sort of bigger goals that you aspire to go to, what can we expect from you?
My biggest goal is to impact people in a positive way, and I always say that, and I really mean that. My goal is impact, and whatever that looks like. You know, whether it's through music, whether it's through my content, I just really want to impact, you know, the world in a way that's positive and leaves a lasting impression, you know, that's good, you know. That's really my big thing. I wouldn't say it's like, oh, this placement or this whatever. Like, it's really just impact. I want to create an impact that is unforgettable, that just shapes the world in a positive light, and you know, makes the world a better place. You know, by just being a part of whatever my journey evolves into. You know, I want to continue to bring people onto that and just open that up to and inspire people and motivate people to go after whatever they want to do. So that's my long term, the big goal, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, people will say that, and sometimes I'll be like, really? Like in my head, I'm thinking, is that really the? But with you, I believe it 100%. Like your energy, and it speaks to the authenticity. Like your energy with all your content speaks to what you just told me. So that's awesome. And in terms of, I'll put you on the spot a little bit, like in terms of impacting people and making the world, putting a positive impact on the world and people, is there a specific way that you could do that in the future? Like, is there something that, you know, because right now I would argue that you already do that to an extent in the ways that you already approach your content and the way you communicate with people. But what does it look like, let's say, I don't know, 5 years from now, or at the, you know, the more that it grows, that your brand grows, like what kind of things do you see yourself being able to do, and how would you be impacting people?
So that's a great question. I would actually love to be able to like create programs, that I can have, you know, the I guess you could say the underdogs be able to be involved in, and really more so just creatives, not necessarily you have to be a producer or an artist, just creatives that really just need the platform to be able to grow and do what they need to do. And I'd want to be able to provide like funding to, you know, and resources for a certain amount of people, you know, even if it's 100 people, creatives and kind of stuff like that, like you see a lot of programs, and be able to just help them be able to grow in whatever they're doing. You know, and one of my biggest groups of people that I definitely am wanting to work more with are people that have disabilities, because as someone that has a physical disability and then also a cognitive disorder, because I have autism as well, is that, like, I do want to show that it's possible to be able to achieve, you know, what you want to do, even if you have to do it differently. And, you know, that's not, everybody's different. So when it comes to disabilities, I'm definitely not saying that, like, oh, if I can do it, you can do it too, because there's some things that people can't do. Like, it's not a mentality thing. It's just they literally won't be able to do it. You know what I mean? So I'm definitely not saying that. I just want to be able to help how I can, for that demographic of people as well. And of course, I wouldn't close off opportunities to other people that don't have disabilities. But that is one of my big things, is I'd like to be able to have creatives that have disabilities be able to have a platform, because a lot of times being a person that has a disability and also being a content creator can actually make things even more difficult. And, you know, I know that, I hear the stories, I see it, you know, and so I would love to be able to create a platform where people who are like me could have the funding and the resources that may be harder to get than our able-bodied counterparts. And so that's like one of those things that I definitely know is a big thing I'd like to do, outside of just having a program for, like, just creatives, just something that's definitely specialized and geared towards people with disabilities, so that they knew, like, hey, this is for me, you know what I mean? And then also having something that could just be open to creatives in general, where it's not that, like, you know, focused, hyper focused on a certain demographic of people. But impact, like I said, is important to me, and representation is important as well. And so I think that is something that is missing now, is having a platform for people like myself to be able to get those types of resources, because, you know, for myself, I didn't really get to see a lot of people that look like me in the music industry, and then just, you know, doing what I'm doing. So, you know, I had to pave that way for myself to kind of figure out, like, how am I going to do things. And I like to use my experiences to help other creatives who may be in the same boat that I was, and be able to help them get to where they want to go and achieve what they want to achieve, and just be able to be a part of that.
That's an amazing answer, truly. Yeah, I honestly, you're already doing an incredible job with everything you're doing in general, and the fact that you truly are one of a kind when you're saying you don't see yourself represented in the way that you would have hoped in the music industry when you were first looking at it. I would agree with that. You know, I'm not saying for myself, but I just mean you really are one of a kind, and you are doing a lot to pave the way. So that's amazing. I'm really excited to see where you go with that, and what other steps you'll be taking. Yeah, look, thank you so much for this interview.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it was long overdue, right? So it's even better now. And yeah, is there anything else you wanted to leave off with, or, you know, you can plug yourself now, but if there's other things you want to say, please, the floor is yours.
Well, one, I just want to say thank you again for having me. I love what you're doing. I love seeing, you know, this podcast grow, because you've been doing this podcast for a while now, and you've been able to have some really dope guests on it, and just seeing how far you've come as a producer and just in your individual journey is really cool to see. Because, you know, shoot, I think we first collaborated, I believe, like back in like 2016 maybe. I was still in college, you know. Yeah, like, you know, and we gotta collab again, but that's neither here nor there. But you know, it's great to see someone like yourself really growing and continuing to achieve stuff. And as far as me, you know, if for people to keep up with me, you can check me out, Mini Producer, everywhere. Mini Producer official on TikTok. I got my website, miniproducer.com, and I'm actually having a rebrand that's happening, so I'll have a new website, but it'll still be miniproducer.com. And my manager is very involved in my rebrand. I have a new logo and new brand colors. The brand color now is blue, because blue is actually my favorite color, and my brand is just maturing and growing as I mature and grow. So yeah, you can keep up with me. Just check out Mini Producer and keep up with the journey. I'm gonna continue to just do amazing things, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens even next year, next week, shoot, you know. So I'm very grateful for everything, and just super grateful for the people that have been a part of my story and my journey as I navigate through this. So stay tuned.